All right, everyone, welcome. We're going to give everyone a couple minutes to sign on. And while we're waiting, we'd love to see where y'all calling in from. We have people join from all over the US and around the world, so that's always fun to see. I'd like to introduce our guest for this today's webinar, Jeff Bradford. Jeff, where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from Lexington, Kentucky,
Beautiful.
USA.
Beautiful. I'm calling in from Tel Aviv, Israel. Now, Lexington is next to my favorite national park in the United States, Red River Gorge. And as a young Hoosier, it was where I went all my summers. And I hope that you're able to get down there too as well, Jeff.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful. I used to do a lot of canoeing down there as a young Boy Scout.
Amazing. I think we were probably on the same rivers, to be honest with you. All right. So, as we're giving everyone a couple more minutes to sign in, we have a quick poll for you to fill out before we get started. And today's poll question is, do you think good writing has become more, less, or equally as important with new AI writing tools available? So I'm just going to start that poll up and let's see what people think. So Jeff, what's your opinion on this? Obviously, we're going to be speaking about this a lot more in depth, but what are your initial reactions to this?
I think good writing has become more important because AI is forcing us to become better writers.
Definitely. I mean, and we're going to definitely get into that, but I think, we have to, know what we're writing in order to get the AI to generate what we want. That's something that we'll be talking a little bit more about.
Right.
So yeah, I see we got some people from Arlington, Texas, South Africa, Alberta, Canada, Raleigh, London. This is a really nice international crew that we have going on here. And yeah, I think that this is going to be a really interesting webinar. Really excited to hear your thoughts about this, Jeff.
It's someone from Louisville. Great.
Awesome. Well, very close to Jeffersonville, Indiana, in the world's greatest state. Kentucky is a very close second. All right. Well, I'm just going to give this a few more seconds, let a few more people, who are just rolling in, to answer the question. Once again, we are going to be talking about becoming a better writer in the era of AI. With that question, do you think good writing has become more or less or equally as important with new AI writing tools available? So I'm just going to give this a few more seconds, see what's going on. Now, Jeff, I know you have a major book collection in your house, and you have an amazing background there. I just wanted to let that be known.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, oh, sorry.
So I have too many books.
I've never heard that phrase before in my entire life. Not sure if that's grammatically correct. All right, so let's end the...
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
All right, so let's end the poll here. Okay, and overwhelming majority are saying more. And I think that's why everyone here is on the webinar listening, because we're talking about writing styles, we're talking about writing in the age of AI, and I think that's pretty accurate for what we're thinking here. And so I just want to introduce both of us once again. My name is Eitan Goldstein. I'm the communications manager for Propel PRM. I use the platform every day to garner earned media coverage for the company. I previously worked at GKPR, one of the premier tech PR firms in Israel, where I represented companies from seed stage to Fortune 100. Prior to this, I was a senior editor at Ynet News, the English language edition of Israel's largest newspaper. And I'm very excited to introduce our guest joining us today, Jeff Bradford. Another former journalist, Jeff has nearly 40 years experience in public relations and marketing. He served as a senior executive of two large Nashville area public relations and advertising agencies before establishing public relations from the Bradford Group in Nashville in 2000. In 2020, the Bradford Group merged with the Dalton Agency to create a full-service advertising and public relations firm with offices in Nashville, Atlanta, and Jacksonville. The combined firm generates over $12 million in revenue and has a staff of more than 90. Jeff led Dalton's Nashville office until 2023, very recently actually, and is one of 3 Hall of Fame members of the National Business Journal's Most Admired CEOs Award, and he's the only 7-time winner. He's also been honored as Volunteer of the Year by the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Amazing. So, let's talk about what we're going to be talking about. Just a quick agenda here. First, we're going to be talking about agency management in the face of change. Next, what lies at the heart of PR. After that, what PR pros should let AI do and what they shouldn't let AI do. And finally, the implications of AI in traditional writing. And of course, as always, we're going to follow that up with a Q&A. But first, just want to do a really quick amount of just letting people know who we are as Propel. We're the first PR tool built by PR people for PR people. And our CEO, Zach Cutler, founded it in 2019 after running his own agency for about 9 years. In his agency years, Zach was always on the lookout for better technology to manage all of his agency's needs. Finding none that suited them, he decided to build the first CRM specifically for PR on the market. So he sold his agency and built Propel. Now we're on a mission to democratize and make PR technology accessible for the masses. We've launched many first-of-a-kind features for PR workflow, insights, and analytics. And we have the industry's only native Gmail and Outlook email pitch plugins, as well as an Amiga-powered pitch writer, press release writer, and media list builder. Now, Jeff, I understand that you just came out with a book recently. Is that correct?
I did. It's called The Joy of Propaganda, the how and why of public relations and marketing.
Awesome. Can you talk a little bit about the book? What's in it? What did you write about? Where did you source the information from?
Sure. Well, it's a book about PR and marketing, really, and as it says, the how and the why of it. So I talk about tactics, how to do PR effectively. I also talk about the underlying psychological and philosophical underpinnings of public relations, which interests me.
Wow,
it's available on Amazon. Get your copy today.
That's
The
big.
Joy of Propaganda.
If you have a link to that, you feel free to put that in the chat too, by the way. I've actually read a few snippets of the book and I thought it was very insightful, really interesting. And you had a lot of interesting ideas in there. And actually, I'd like to get into some of them and jump off using your ideas for today's webinar. So of course, right now we're going to be talking about agency management in the face of change. As we both know, AI is just rapidly advancing, and we're finding ourselves at a unique intersection of technology and creativity. With this latest change at our fingertips, I want to kick off the discussion driving into your agency leadership experience a little bit more, and especially in the face of the constant industry change over the years, technologically and business-wise. Just kind of right off the bat, first of all, congratulations on a great career, 20 years. I believe you just retired a month or so ago, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think, with your wealth of experience, I'd love if you could share a little bit more about your experience as an agency owner on a higher level.
My experience in terms of managing the agency or in terms of doing PR or both? Or
if you could do both, that would be fantastic.
Okay, so on the agency management side, the best lesson that I learned was to create a good team and to hire good people. That was a painful lesson to learn. We didn't always do that. In the hiring good people side, what I learned, the secret was to actually test people. Everyone can give you what they want, what you want to hear in an interview, and it's very hard to discern truth from falsity there. So we actually tested people. We tested their writing ability, we tested their intelligence, and we tested their proofreading ability. All what I saw as key skills for public relations. And then we used those tests as a screener. And then upon that, we based our interviews. So that, to me, good hiring is the basis of a good public relations agency, because really all you're doing is selling your brains, and they need to be very good and functional brains. On the public relations side, I think the secret is not being afraid. So many times, a lot of public relations people like myself are former journalists who have a somewhat disdainful view of the profession because they were frequently the targets of idiots doing that work. So I think that we need to realize that you're not insulting journalists by giving them a call. You're not being a problem. You're being an opportunity for them. I have, in my 40 years of doing PR, I have never had a journalist tell me that he wished I had not called him. It's just a fact, right? Journalists are naturally curious. They naturally need access to people. They're not afraid of you. So my best advice for up and coming PR practitioners is pick up the damn phone.
That's really interesting. For me, when I was a senior editor, if someone that I didn't know were to call me, I'd block them. But if I did know them, that's if I did have some sort of relationship with them, that's when I would be okay to take their call. And even today, there are certain journalists that I have a great relationship, and I will actually call them. It's just a lot quicker. Journalists are getting inundated with hundreds of thousands of not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds of emails a day. And if you have that relationship, your email might just kind of be lost in the wave. So I do also pick up the phone and call if I have a great relationship with them. But I also think that has something to do with like the changing of the cultures. I think I've noticed that a lot of people are a lot more hesitant to actually pick up the phone. They're a lot more comfortable texting. They're more comfortable over email. There's something with that the screen, the physical screen between them and the other person that makes things a little bit easier for them. And I think that's one of the changes that's happening in PR today. Beyond that, you started your PR firm in 2000, or sorry, in a little bit after 2000. And so
I was
not
going to say
only did you,
2000.
sorry,
It was March 1st, 2000.
March 1st, 2000. So, you
Mhm.
were really able to see not only the change in the industry from a cultural standpoint, but also from a technological standpoint. You really were
Yes.
there when the internet was starting to become in vogue and really widespread. And I was wondering, what were some of the ways that you adopted adopted this technology and adapted to the new culture that it brought?
And I agree. I think the biggest change in public relations in the past 20 years has been social media. I think social media has revolutionized what public relations is all about because it bypassed the traditional route of going through the news media. It's direct communication with your target audience. I was an early adapter of LinkedIn, and you probably know, Eton, that LinkedIn was actually the first social media program to go widespread. It actually become something used by ordinary people. What I realized when LinkedIn first debuted, because I had long been involved in word of mouth marketing, that social media really is just an electronic version of word of mouth marketing. That it's a way to establish a direct connection with your audience without going through another medium. And the same restrictions and the same opportunities in word of mouth marketing apply to social media, which means you have to tell the truth. You have to find the people who are worth talking to, and you have to get them a message that is exciting enough that they'll tell their friends without you bugging them about it. So that, to me, social media is simply is a supercharged version of word of mouth. It also enables you to actually visualize the network that you're creating, which you could not do prior to electronic media coming into the word of mouth marketing. So yeah, to me, that's the biggest change, and that agencies who have not figured that out are dying.
There is something in there that I like that you said, or at least alluded to, and that's you're essentially doing the same thing except online. And
Right.
you were taking your entire playbook and adapting it just to this new medium. And I think that's something that we as PR pros today need to start thinking about or need to implement when we're thinking about AI. We shouldn't be using AI as a crutch. We shouldn't be using AI necessarily as this brand new tool that we can use and figuring out how to use it because it's so new and we have no idea what it is. But instead, I think that the people that are going to be successful in PR going into the future, who are going to be utilizing generative AI features, are going to be the ones that understand, okay, this is how I do X, and I'm just going to figure out the best way to do the exact same thing in light of this brand new development.
Right. It's basically, in my experience, technology enables us to do faster and better what we were already doing. In other words, the fundamentals of public relations remain unchanged. It's good writing, good thinking, good identification of who your market is, and good lining up of your message with that market. That has not changed, and that does not take AI to help you do. But in AI and social media, any sort of technology really applied to communication, simply allows you to do faster and better what you are already doing. And I think that's the key. And I think people who are fundamentally well grounded in the fundamentals of marketing and public relations are going to be just as good with technology as people as they were before. I'm not sorry, they'll be better with technology. But the ones who don't, people who don't understand the fundamentals of this craft are going to continue to flounder. And actually, AI, I think, will speed up their demise because it will point out the flaws in their thinking faster.
Do you think that then that would help them become actually better writers?
Maybe, but probably not. I think people who are unable to write well, and which means unable to think well, are not going to be any better writers or thinkers with a technological edge. They still lack the fundamental understanding of how communication and language works.
Right. And you mentioned in your book, there's whole sections on, when to use different. Something that I really enjoyed as someone who speaks multiple languages is really understanding the weight of the words that you're using when you're writing. A certain word might have a different weight in one language than another, and that might make it hard for maybe a dueling someone who's bilingual, or even someone who just doesn't have a full grasp. They might be a native English speaker, where they just might not have a full grasp of the language to really get that across. So what are some ways that you have seen that really help people to really gain a better understanding, not only give them a bigger vocabulary, but help them understand like what the true meaning of words are, what the different weights of words are, and how to find the nuances in the different words that they're using?
They read good books primarily. I mean, good writing requires reading of good examples of writing. That's the only way that you actually learn to be a good writer. So if you don't read, you can't write, basically. And I recommend reading across a broad spectrum of topics. Read good literature for sure. Whoever you think is a good writer, whether that's Hemingway or Faulkner or Shakespeare or Milton or anybody, just read people who have been recognized as experts in that field, but also read nonfiction, read physics, read biology, read anything that interests you, because that's just simply giving you a broader perspective with which to draw in to communicate with.
Right. I think that's sorry.
You need a full toolbox.
100% agree, and I think that's just seeing great examples, and I'm happy they didn't say read books on writing. Some people would have said that, but I think that's something that's super important, is just being and read what's interesting to you too. Otherwise, it's going to be a huge slog, and you won't actually understand or internalize.
Although there are good books on writing, I would recommend reading. I would recommend everyone read The Elements of Style by Strunk and White, for instance, which I think is the Bible of good writing, and is about 50 pages. It's simple. The entire book is available online, by the way. But also Stephen King wrote a really good book about how to be a good writer. I mean, there are good books about how to be writers, but you should also just read good writing, because you'll pick up, even unconsciously, you'll pick up the sense of style of a good writer, and you'll begin to know when words feel right versus just look right.
Right, definitely. So before we move on a little bit, I wanted to ask you just a little bit more about, our writing styles are obviously going to be a little bit different than someone who's writing a novel, someone who's writing a newspaper ad. We're not only trying to engage with the journalists and make them interested, but we're also trying to make them a little bit curious. I think that we're trying in such a short amount of words to do everything that an entire full page article is trying to do. So I'm wondering, what do you think? How do you think AI can impact that style of writing? And where do you see this style of writing in just how PR is going to be evolving?
Let me just say that I think in general, AI can help us become better writers by more quickly pointing out where we're bad writers. In a nutshell, I mean, I think that that's the main advantage of AI. It's going to help us with word choice. It's going to help us with grammar. It's going to help us with syntax. I mean, all the mechanics of writing. AI will help you become a better writer because it knows the rules, and you may not know all the rules. So by working with AI, you're going to more intrinsically learn the difference between dry and arid. And why would you use those two different words? Or, subject verb agreement, those sort of basic things. I think AI will help us become better at. What AI will not help us become better at is better thinkers, I don't think. I think it could present us with other scenarios. It could present us with alternative visions. We can ourselves then analyze, but the thinking has to come from us, and that's going to be the fundamental difference between good and bad writers. Is good thinking. I think that people who are going to become expert at AI are going to become expert at writing good AI prompts, which requires clear, consistent, reasonable thinking.
Right, and that's also something that we're going to be getting into very shortly. And we're definitely going to pick your brain about that. So, the next thing that I wanted to talk about very quickly, we've been speaking about writing lying at the heart of the world of PR, of course, and how important that is. And I wanted to, first of all, ask you, you were a reporter and an editor, lots of writing there, obviously. So what made you want to come from that side over to the PR and marketing side? What drew you to that?
Yeah, so two things. Money, first. Journalists are notoriously poorly paid. I was tired of being poorly paid. Secondly, I like making things happen versus reporting on what other people have made happen. And to me, that's the advantage of PR over journalism, is that you are a protagonist. You're actually creating things. You're creating something new. You're making things happen. A journalist, by definition, now that definition is shifting today in light of the sort of the advocacy journalism we're seeing from some media, but fundamentally, a journalist is someone who should report objectively what is happening, not make things happen. I like making things happen.
Interesting. And I think that's something about that speaks to the very essence of us as PR pros. And I think that's also something we're going to talk about in a little bit more in depth, but we're always going to be needed as PR pros, I believe. The AI can't tell if a company has closed a Series C, if a new product is coming out, if someone, who's new in C-suite or things like that. That's only us, that can report that out into the wider world. And I was wondering, what do you see as the future of mainstream media with us as PR pros? How is that going to fit into the larger PR media landscape? And have you seen it change, if you've seen it change, from the beginning of your career until today?
I think that public relations will become more and more important to the news media as we keep going, because the news media employment is going like this. So they're having to do more work with fewer people, which means they're going to have to rely on smart, honest public relations practitioners to fill in the gaps. That's just a fact. I mean, journalists today don't have time to do all the research that needs to be done. They don't have time to line up all the contacts that they need. I mean, that's what people like us do. And that's, to me, a smart and effective public relations practitioner's main job is to be an honest and smart assistant to a journalist, to help them do their work more quickly.
Right. And so, some people think that has to do with, almost writing their articles for them. I have my own thoughts on this, but at first I'd like to hear yours about, how much information do we give them? How do we make it seem like how do we prevent ourselves from seeming like we're just company propagandists, to take, your Joy of Propaganda title, and give them and make it feel genuine?
Well, we are propagandists. I think we need to admit that first, that we have a job to do, and that's to advance a particular message. That does not mean that we're liars. And I would put forward the very strong belief that if you're lying in PR, you are failing in PR on many levels. You're failing on an ethical level. You're failing on an effectiveness level, frankly, because your lies will be found out and you will be discredited and your client will be discredited and you're going to lose in the end. So, I mean, I'm a very big on telling the truth in public relations, because it's the right thing to do. And it also creates a better relationship with the people that you're working with. I mean, you're helping them. You're not trying to fool them. You're trying to give them information that they didn't know, that's in line with what they're trying to learn. So I'm getting kind of a far field here, I guess. But I mean, I think that we can be the most effective public relations people that we can by knowing all we all we can know, knowing more than the journalist knows about a particular topic, and being honest about how we provide that information to the journalist. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have a spin and a message on that information, but we should never lie, and we should always, be straightforward and honest in what we're providing. And that way, we become a trusted partner to journalists. Now, I have many journalists who consider me a trusted partner, and it's a hard-won honor, frankly.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. You actually, so just to promote your book a little bit more. I apologize I'm happy to do a little bit, but so you have a part in there about talking about how the Russian propagandists worked, and as awful as it was, they had something called the big lie. Can you talk a little bit about that and how to prevent that from happening with us in order to get that trust, to gain that trust amongst journalists that you just talked about?
Well, the big lie, of course, was invented by Joseph Goebbels during World War II and the Nazi regime. And the Nazis sort of really took propaganda to the next level. The Russians are kind of just piggybacking on what they did. But the big lie, as we've seen documented in history, is simply coming up with a story that does not comport with reality, but that you state in unequivocal terms and state repeatedly, and then point to manufactured examples of that lie to prove it. Basically, the big lie works by shutting out of the room everything else that can go against the big lie. The big lie requires a totalitarian regime to actually be effective, because otherwise you can't shut out all the competing voices. That's what the big lie is. It's a manufactured reality that you try to impose upon the world.
Right. And so, one last thing about this is we have to use our good writing to prevent these types of things from happening, to prevent, these types of lies from being spread. It doesn't matter if it's about our organization or if it's about society in general. And, the last time I'm going to talk about your book, you write about how to write like a gunslinger. And I was wondering if you could mind sharing what you mean by this and why it's important.
Sure. Well, I mean, I use the analogy of a gunslinger. So gunslingers don't waste a lot of time. They get right to the point. They shoot the guy and kill him, and they're done. They don't do a preamble leading up to that shot. And neither should writers waste a lot of time on preambles and introductions and sort of hee-hawing around before they get to the point. Let's see, what else do good gunslingers do? They also mainly it's about speed and focus and lack of regret. It's getting to the point quickly. It's not wasting the reader's time on superfluous information or superfluous words, and it's being very focused and committed on your objective. For a gunslinger, it's to kill the bad guy. For a writer, it's to communicate a clear idea.
Right. And I think that's, that ties in very closely to what we found at Propel with our data. And that is that the most responded to pitches are 150 are around 150 words. We're seeing that only 2.99% of all pitches are getting a response. That could be yes, that could be no. So any sort of response. And the ones that are getting responded to the most are the ones that are 100, that the pitch itself is 150 words. The first paragraph is around 75 words. You're getting to the point really quickly. The journalist is able to just scan it really quickly, understand what you're asking from them. And even before that, the subject line itself is between 6 and 9 words. That's the highest for the subject line with the most responses, because the journalists can see exactly very quickly what you're trying to tell them. They open it up, they get interested, they see exactly what they want, they see exactly what you want from them, and it just makes their lives a lot easier, especially given what we were talking about before, the fact that they're just that these journalist newsrooms are shrinking, and that there are fewer journalists that are forced to be contending with more and more news and more pitches from people like us. So, it's just exactly what you said. Be a gunslinger, short, sweet, to the point. Now, short, sweet, to the point. Sorry.
Brevity has always been the essence of wisdom, I believe, and that's pretty widely known. I also think brevity tells the journalist that you're not an idiot. People who take a long time to get to the point tend to be stupid. And I think journalists would rather deal with smart people. So I think that's two things on your side if you're short.
Oh man, well, I'm a big talker, as people who are regulars to the webinar know. So hopefully that's only half right. No, just kidding. Um, so anyway, let's move on a little bit there. So what should PR? How do we really put AI into our jobs? How do we incorporate it in? What should we do? Let it do? What should we not let it do? And so my first question for you, in your opinion, how do you see AI as being used in PR? What do you think should be the place of AI in the industry?
Okay, sure. Let me just preface that by saying I think that the way AI will be used will evolve as AI itself evolves. I mean, AI is of limited use today because it's a limited tool, but I think it will become a very comprehensive tool in the future. So it's hard for me to predict. But today, I think the best way to use AI is to help make you a better writer, frankly, and that which means being a more concise, a more focused, and a more empathetic, emotionally intelligent writer. I think that's how AI can help us best today.
Now, I mean, we all know that when you're putting something into a generative AI prompt, sometimes we'll get things and that the AI will spit something out that we don't necessarily like. And so how do we know, how do we improve our writing styles if we're just prompt writing? What do you think is the place of, and what do you think is the place of improvement, and how do we improve just with prompt writing? It's typing a few words into a box.
Well, I mean, I think AI itself will help you become a better prompt writer, right? So it's an iterative process. You write, prompt A, and then you get a response back, and you say, okay, actually, I need to revise this prompt by doing A, B, and C, and then I need to revise it by doing G, F, and H. I mean, I think that the process itself, the iterative process of AI, will help us write better prompts and therefore become better writers, get better responses back. I think AI will also help us in quickly providing us with alternative ways of looking at something or alternative ways of saying something. I mean, we will eventually, if you're a good writer, you can come up with 10 or 12 ways of saying something, but it will take you a while. AI will truncate that dramatically to where within a few seconds, you've got 6 different ways of looking at something. And then you use your mind to figure out, oh, I see, this actually makes the most sense. I'll use this way, or maybe I'll combine these 2 ways to say what I'm trying to say. But I think that's what AI does primarily, is presents us with alternative ways of seeing reality. And then we can use our own mind to pick out the one that's most effective for communicating our idea.
I like that as well, just thinking about how the AI result is going to make us a better writer. But there's something that we spoke about previously, and that was, being a good thinker. When you're a good thinker, you're good at writing. And how do you think that idea is going to assist us and become better prompt writers?
Well, good point. So, right. So you'll become a better, let me back up. In the book that we've been talking about, thank you for talking about, my main thesis is that good writing is simply good thinking. And I think often people get the cart before the horse. They think that good writing is about style or word choice or sentence structure. And that's important, of course, but really you must begin by having a clearly thought out idea that you're trying to communicate. If you don't have that, all the writing styles in the world will not help you. And I think that's what we see with so much bad writing today, is there was no good thinking behind it before they started. And they just sort of vomit out words that don't have no internal consistency or no relationship to the reality. So if we're able to train ourselves to think logically, sequentially, with transitions and with beginning and ends, we're going to be much more likely to come up with prompts that are incisive, that relate to reality, and that give us the answers that we're looking for.
Yeah, I think that also is something that helps me with my prompt writing. We do have a pitch writer, Amiga powered pitch writer. We have a press release writer, and so of course I'm using this all the time. And this comes back to what you said. How it's not throwing words at the prompt. It's really having an understanding of what do I want already. How do I incorporate everything that I'm thinking about into this prompt, and not only everything that I'm thinking about, but all the little nuances that I want inside of the press release or inside of the pitch. I could throw as much information at a prompt at a prompt as I want. I could bullet point 1,000 bullets. But at the end of the day, I've found that that's not necessarily going to be the thing that gets me over that finish line, that gets me that final product. I need to know how to tell the AI not only what I want, but how to think. If I tell it how to think, it'll spit out something closer to what I want. If I tell it how to be nuanced, it'll be more nuanced. So it's really, I would say that it does take me a quarter of the time to write the prompt. The prompt isn't instantaneous. It does take me a quarter of the time to write the prompt as it does the pitch of the press release. But that just level of thinking, I've found to really really drive my success in AI.
Right. And in order to be a good thinker, you must be a lifelong learner. I think that's something else you need to think about, is that we talked about, reading well. I think that's key. I think you need to have an innate sense of curiosity to be a good writer. You need to be curious about why things happen the way that they happen and constantly seeking out answers to that. And that way you'll be building up this cache of information and previously arrived at decisions that you can use to become a better thinker. Again, it's an iterative process. I mean, our human thinking works the same way as AI. We're just better at it than AI. I mean, the brain is much more powerful than a computer. I think we should always keep that in mind, that the leaps of imagination that we're capable of are not, as of today, mechanically duplicative. You can't duplicate those in a machine. You can't duplicate the leap of genius that sets true great work apart from mediocrity.
Right, I 100% agree with you. Now, we're talking about the evolution of AI right now, and where we see it going. And I'm wondering, do you think that we can actually get AI to the place where where it would be better than us, where you can have an AI prompt writer almost writing better than we are, or even just the AI spitting out better content than we can? And is that something that you think we as humans should be striving to do?
Well, I mean, if you've read much science fiction, and you probably have, Eton, as I have, you will believe that yes, AI will someday be much smarter than we are, and for that reason dangerous, because it will be able to outsmart us. What I think AI will not be able to do is to be more emotionally intelligent than human beings are. Maybe, who knows, but as of today, it certainly can't do that. I mean, that's what makes us human, is our ability to communicate not just the facts, but the feeling behind those facts. That's what moves people to act. It's not reason. We all know this, that all buying decisions are emotion-based decisions, right? We may come back later on and rationalize them, but it's fundamentally meeting an emotional need that we have. That's why we buy things. And that's the radar, the sonar that humans have that machines don't have today and may never have. I don't know. I'm not sure you can mechanize emotions. But that's what sets it. That's why emotional intelligence, I think, is a fundamental to good writing, just as empathy is. I mean, so many times we forget as writers that our job is not to impress ourselves, it's not to show off our talents, it's to make it easy, it's to empathize with the reader and make it easy for them to understand what you're trying to communicate.
Right, 100%. And I really like what you said about how, as of now, the robots, if you will, the AI is unable to really duplicate our emotional writing, or our ability to write with emotion, to write with feeling, with empathy. But however, despite this, there's still a lot out there that AI has been generating and writing, that it's impossible to tell whether a human being wrote them or not. And I was wondering, what
Right.
types of issues do you see this creating, if it is going to create an issue?
I don't think it will create an issue for PR, frankly. I mean, we're not trying to win a Nobel Prize. We're trying to get a story in the newspaper. So, I mean, I think that AI will be perfectly fine for 85%, 90% of the writing that gets done today. I mean, most writing is instructions or directions, are very factual based. Here's the deal. Most pitches are, frankly, just ABC. Here's the story. Here's why it's news. Here's how to get in touch with me. And And there's nothing wrong with using AI to craft those sorts of messages. I think in that top 15 to 10% where we're actually getting down to trying to connect emotionally with another human being, that AI will fail, at least today, will fail in that regard. But to me, I'm not afraid of seeing pitches or blogs or even magazine articles written by AI, as long as the information is communicated easily and factually and easy to understand, then it's a success, I think. I think we worry too much about who generated the writing versus how good the writing is.
Right. And I mean, even if you look at journalists themselves, all journalists have a slant one way or the other. So this is just kind
Right.
of a new version of that old worry that I think people are going to have. And I think it's also important to note that Forbes themselves, they're using generative AI to come up with with a whole lot of their the titles for
Right.
their articles, if not all of them. So we're
It,
already there.
right. But to answer your question on my screen here, we haven't answered yet. Best use of AI for PR pros today. I mean, I think it's the best use is generating blogs and articles and just kind of run-of-the-mill writing that needs to get done. I think that's perfectly fine. As long as you proofread it, make sure it's accurate and not mistakes. I think AI is going to be helpful for helping us devise good pitches. It may not be able to write a good pitch yet, but I think it will give us the prompts and the alternatives to consider in writing a good pitch. And I think AI will also be good in everything in writing marketing plans. I think it would be good for giving us an outline of the things we should think about. AI is very good at taking a collection of disparate facts and organizing them into a way that you can understand. I think that will save us lots of time.
Right. And as we know, time is the most precious resource, and think of all the things that we're going to be able to do with that time: better research, better editing, really getting better ideation, better creativity, just because all of those things, as you just mentioned, that just take up so much of our time are going to be automated out. Now, I wanted to get a little bit into what you think about are the implications of AI on traditional writing, which is why I kind of started to talk a little bit about, how it's working in the news. And then, of course, we'll get into the Q&As. And so, first of all, are you worried about anything with AI in terms of traditional writing? Not necessarily PR, but the way that that content is created, be it novels, be it articles, blogs, anything like that.
So I think that there is a Orwellian aspect to AI. I mean, if we read 1984, for instance, in that book, all of the popular music, all of the popular literature was created by AI. It was just churned out by a machine, and it did a marvelous job of keeping the proletariat fat and happy. And I think that we may get to that, frankly. I think we will get to the point where low-level communications are entirely created by a machine, and they will be just fine for people who worry about low-level communications. And that's frankly sad. Yeah, that is sad that we'll get to the point where we're manipulating people with machines. And I'm not sure how we get around that. So that I am wary of that. I'm also wary of the effect of AI on people learning how to write, on college students learning how to write, because they won't have to learn how to write if they simply turn it over to an AI robot. And I do worry about that. And I'm not yet sure how we're going to overcome that. I know that a lot of educational institutions right now are grappling with that. A lot of schools this last semester outlawed AI from their from their computers, but then they realized, well, kids just go home and do it at home. We really can't. You can't put a fence around this technology. It's going to be there. So we're at the stage now of learning how to use AI the same way that mathematics learned how to use the calculator when it came about. So the calculator did not destroy the teaching of mathematics. But it simply brought it to another level, right? So we're now going to be able to use a calculator to take care of all the mundane calculations that mathematics require. And we spend our time up here worrying about larger concepts and theories about math. I think the same thing will happen to writing. We'll use AI to take care of the rudimentary, fundamental, just communicating information sort of writing. We're still going to require human beings, I think, at the higher end of that register to communicate more emotionally laden, more deeper thought writing. I hope so, but I think that's my take on it. I think we can use it as a tool, but we should not be ruled by the tool.
Right. And it sounds like, that's exactly what you experienced with, and all of us really experience with the internet, is that we have to rule the tool and not be ruled by it.
Right.
So, and it is creating a brave new world, if you will. Jeff and I were speaking that we read Nassim Taleb's book, The Black Swan. Internet was a black swan event, completely changing the way forever that the world works. And generative AI,
Right.
specifically the release of OpenAI's ChatGPT, was another black swan event, which fundamentally has changed the way that the world is going to be operating going forward. And so, I think that if we're able to really take these ideas and run with them, we're going to be really successful. And so we were taught. So the reason I brought up Taleb, Nassim Taleb, who I believe everyone should read, is because Keith asked a very interesting question that I'd love to hear as well. Jeff, what are some of your favorite books and authors to read, and how do you feel they've impacted your writing?
Sure. My favorite book is The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. Other great books are The Great Gatsby by Fitzgerald, Absalom by William Faulkner. Look on my bookshelf back here and see what else I like. Cormac McCarthy is my favorite almost living writer. He recently died. All the Pretty Horses, Blood Meridian, great pieces of writing. I also like Don DeLillo, who's another good modern writer. So I like people who are able to use writing to communicate ineffable truths. And I think that's what those writers do. They use writing to communicate things that really can't be said, but they're saying them in a way that connect with us on a deeper level. I mean, Hemingway is a great example of that. So Hemingway, very concise writer, very much to the point, but he was able to pack into 5 words, 5 paragraphs worth of meaning, and that's a real skill.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And I think that's also, if we're going to go back to the AI track, how are we going to be able to utilize the technology in order to do that? That is part of the ideation. That is part of the shortening of the time it takes in order to get that good writing. And just different ways to think about that. Another really quick thing that I want to ask before we wrap up is to ask, what do you, Jeff, feel are 3 key tips to success in PR?
Well, I mean, just to reiterate, I think good writing is key. I think you need to know how to communicate well. I think that empathy is also key to successful PR. You need to be able to understand how others think and feel if you're going to try and influence how they think and feel. And I think curiosity is the third key ingredient for a good PR. I think you need to be constantly learning about what you didn't know yesterday. You need to be learning people. You need to be curious about who is the top writer in the country on AI or on your client's industry. I guess that's the 2 things: good writing, curiosity, and what was the third one? I forgot the third one.
It was good writing, curiosity, and yeah, I mean, there's just so much there. I also forgot the third one, but there is something that
empathy. They remind me. Empathy.
So there is something else that I wanted to mention. Just in terms of using AI to become better writers. I think that's something that we're going to be seeing a lot of, and I'm really worried about it because I'm already seeing it a little bit in the results that I'm receiving. Is a little bit too much jargon. AI really will pick up on anything. If a word is repeated too much, AI will just assume that it's a part of the everyday way of speaking. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. Like, how do we deal with it might not just necessarily be corporate jargon that AI is spitting out at us, but it could
Yeah.
be, just industry jargon, things like that. How do we, can that be part of good writing? Can that be part of a good prompt? What are your thoughts about this?
I loathe jargon, so I don't think jargon can be a part of anything worthwhile, frankly. The reason is that jargon is really just pre-digested ideas. Someone else has chewed those ideas up and given them to you. You've not thought them out, and so therefore they lack any real vitality or reality. And it's just frankly ugly. I mean, I think using impact as a verb is the ugliest statement that we've come along with in English so far, along with overused words like, awesome and I don't know, and stupid jargon like drain the ocean and run up the flagpole, this whole panoply of jargon that we've come up with. I honestly think, Etan, that the use of jargon, particularly corporate jargon, is the biggest bane that we're dealing with in terms of communication today, because it's imprecise. It doesn't actually mean anything, and it's not new ideas. It's just pre-chewed ideas that we spit out there to try and fill in the blank. Jargon can get you through a meeting, but it can't get you to a sale.
Right. I've noticed in my own writing, if I'm let's say I'm having a lazy day and I'm not writing my best prompts, I'll get a lot more jargon than I would have otherwise. And again, like we are supposed to be presenting and putting the best foot forward for our clients or our organizations or whoever we represent. But I feel that if I'm spitting, if it goes back to using AI to really figure out, am I being a good writer? Am I getting my ideas to the technology across in an efficient manner? Because if I'm starting to see jargon come back personally, I realize, oh, okay, so it also doesn't really understand what I'm trying to say. It's trying to throw whatever
Right.
it can at the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
Right. Awesome. So I was just wondering, if anyone has any other questions, or Jeff, if there's anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to talk about a little bit further.
I think you've done a really good job of asking questions. Let's see. You think there are any really good media relations? People want to teach a machine how to replace them. This is what this tool does. Learn from previous pitches. I think that this sort of Luddite mentality about technology is ultimately a losing way to think. I think that technology is a given. It's going to happen. It's going to continue to do more and more things that we're doing ourselves today. But I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that we able to use the tool as a tool, not as something to take over us, but as something that makes us better at what we're doing. Okay, let's say that AI is able to write media pitches that are effective. Well, then that frees us up to do something more important in our profession, right? Maybe we spend more time actually meeting journalists versus writing them pitches. That's going to be a much better use of your time.
Right, definitely 100%. And again, it gets back to what we mentioned briefly before. I've noticed in my own workflow that I'm much better able. I'm much more able to dive into my research. I'm better. I can I take the time to be more creative. I take the time to really think about what is it that I want to not only put into the prompt writer, but how do I want to position Propel? How do what strategies can I be using? And to think in a more all-encompassing, holistic way. All right.
Hey, I'm
Well,
putting in a link to the book, by the way.
all right. Beautiful. Amazing. Well, if anyone else has any questions, we'd love to hear them. It looks like we have one more. Oh, no, sorry. That is Jeff putting the link to his book. Well,
That's my link.
Well, this has been
shameless
sorry.
promotion.
It's just fine. It's just fine. As I think a lot of people know, we here at Propel also, as I mentioned multiple times, we also, are deeply incorporating AI and have been incorporating AI into our platform since the very beginning. So of course, like any ways that we could think about and talk to experts about how to utilize that AI even better is always worth it. Once again, so I think this is all the time we have for today. Thank you everyone for coming and joining us for this discussion. If anyone would like to contact me, my name is Eitan again at propelmypr.com. We have several other fun things that we promoted as well. We have a Propel Wrapped showing how different phrases, different words were received by media personnel. We have the Propel Barometer, which describes as well what you can do to make your pitches shine even better. And Jeff, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, thanks for the opportunity.
Beautiful. Well, thank you everyone so much for coming. Depending on where you are in the world, have a great evening, great afternoon, or a great morning. Bye, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Jeff. Bye.
Bye.